This video is brought to you by Ridge Wallet, a slim front pocket wallet available in carbon fiber and titanium. With more than 250,000 sold, a lifetime guarantee and free shipping, get 10% off with the code GOLDFISH at ridgewallet.com. Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another Instant Deck Tech. So this week, it's Ravnica Allegiance week. Every day this week, we are checking out a different style of deck for our new standard format, and it is time to talk some Wilderness Reclamation. This is Temur Control, comes to us from Andy Peters, who took it to a 5-0 finish in a competitive standard league on Magic Online. So congrats to Andy Peters on a really sweet deck. A quick reminder before we break down Temur Control for standard. If you enjoy this deck and you want to see it made into videos, take a minute, click the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment, anything you can do to support your deck, because whichever deck is most popular gets a shot at being made into videos next week. So, Temur Control, it is a Wilderness Reclamation deck, maybe one of the most hyped cards, and definitely the most hyped uncommon, I think, from Ravnica Allegiance. So at first glance, it doesn't look that scary. 4 mana, at the beginning of your end step, you get to untap all your lands. So this card is almost a combo piece in our deck. And I will say, we are playing a single copy of Nexus of Fate, but we are not a infinite turn combo deck. We only have a single copy, so that's not really the plan to go infinite with Nexus of Fate. With just one, we're not going to hit it all that often, and we're definitely not going to string them together for 20 turns in a row or anything. But we do have one because it's really nice value with Wilderness Reclamation. The power of Nexus with Wilderness Reclamation is if we play Reclamation on turn number 4, on turn 5, if we leave up all of our mana, go to our end step, we can tap all of our mana for 5 mana, untap all of our lands, tap it again so we have 10 mana, so we can take an extra turn right away. But while taking an extra turn is kind of like our backup plan, the trick of leaving up our mana and doubling it on our end step with Wilderness Reclamation is what this deck is all about. That is the primary goal of our deck. So our biggest payoff is Expansion Explosion. We're doing the same trick here. So let's say we have maybe 6 lands on the battlefield. We pass our turn, all of our lands untapped. On our end step, we put the Wilderness Reclamation trigger on the stack. We tap all of our lands for 6 mana. Untap all of our lands with Wilderness Reclamation, tap them all again to go up to 12 mana, then we just Expansion Explosion our opponent for like 8. Draw 8 cards, hitting more Expansion Explosions, dealing a bunch of damage to set it up to do it again the next turn, because we're just churning through our deck so quickly, and eventually that just kills our opponent, and that is only 6 lands. Imagine in the late game, if we have like 10 lands or 12 lands, we could potentially just one-shot kill our opponent on our end step, doubling up our mana with Wilderness Reclamation. We can also use Expansion to copy some of our cheaper spells in the early game, which is worth keeping in mind. Like doubling up a Chemister's Insight or something is a perfectly fine line with the deck. So that's kind of big payoff number 1. Big payoff number 2, not as obvious of a combo with Wilderness Reclamation, but it's Murmuring Mystic. So Murmuring Mystic, young fly romancer. Every time you cast an instant or sorcerer, you get a 1/1 blue bird illusion with flying. And the plan here is to kind of like almost storm off and make a ton of birds. So we get down our Murmuring Mystic, we have all of our lands untapping with Wilderness Reclamation, and we have just like a million cheap cantripping instants, 4 ops, 4 growth spirals, 4 radical ideas, 4 Chemister's Insight. So with our mana being doubled, or maybe eventually tripled or quadrupled if we get multiple Wilderness Reclamations on the battlefield, we could just chain these cards together, cast a ton of spells, make a massive board of birds. If we got to play defense, we can jump block literally forever, and then eventually we just start smashing our opponent with this board full of massive birds. Most of these cards are just cantrips. Growth Spiral does give us a bit of ramp. We can put a land into play, which is actually pretty nice because the more lands we have on the battlefield, the more mana doubling we can do with Wilderness Reclamation. Also worth mentioning that Jumpstart works really well with our Murmuring Mystic, since they're kind of 2 spells in one. Radical Idea, make a bird. Jumpstart it, make a bird. Nice way to get even more birds out of our Murmuring Mystic. Otherwise, we get a little bit of defense, 3 copies of Shivan Fire, just a nice kick weaker early game removal spell for Root Snares. Again, we're not the Turbo Fog deck. We have some Fogs, we have one copy of Nexus, but we're not trying to do this forever. We're a much faster build of this deck. One of the things I think people really dislike about Turbo Fog is it takes forever for the deck to actually kill you. You got to go through like 20 turns of looping into fairies and exiling your stuff. This deck is not like that. While we do have one Nexus, we do have a playset of Fogs, this deck is going to kill people really, really quickly with just huge explosion to our opponent's face. Huge explosion to our opponent's face. Or make 10 birds all of a sudden out of nowhere to kill our opponent. So it's sort of like Turbo Fog, but instead of making your opponent sit there for 20 turns while you're dirtling and doing nothing, this deck is much more aggressive and has a much cleaner way to just be like, okay, you're dead. We're just killing you after 1 turn, 2 turns. The game is over. We actually win the game, which is really nice for the opponents especially. Mana base wise, bunch of shock lands, a bunch of check lands, couple basic lands. This is basically the standard mana base for 3 color decks in our current format. Basically 11 to 12 shocks, 11 to 12 check lands, 1 to 2 basic lands. So if you are building 3 colors and want the optimal mana base, that's pretty much the way to go about it. Sideboard wise, we get a few creatures we can bring in specific matchups. Niv Mizzet, great in control mirrors. Raptor Hatchling, kind of our tech against mono red. Comes down, blocks, and then makes a 3/3 to block again. So puts up really good defense against creatures on the ground in the early game. Rex Sage to deal with our opponent's Wilderness Reclamations. There's a ton of powerful artifacts and enchantments right now. Broken Bond, kind of the same deal. Plus, we get the weird growth spiral text of getting to put a land into play. Then we have, for control in specific, Spell Pierce, Negate, and Firemind's Research, which can kind of work with that Storm plan we were talking about. It's like a Murmuring Mystic almost, except it's not going to die to creature removal. Gonna die to enchantment removal, but we can cast a lot of spells, deal a lot of damage, draw a lot of cards with Firemind's Research, and that is Temur control for Ravnica Allegiance standard, and that's better instant deck tech for today. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up on all the latest and greatest, click that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to, check out some of our other sweet videos here and here.